I'm selling my soul, working all day, overtime hours for bullshit pay, so I can sit out here and waste my life away, drag back home and drown my troubles away. It's a damn shame what the world's gotten to for people like me, people like you. Wish I could just wake up and it not be true, but it is. Oh, it is living in the new world.
All right, good morning, guys. It is August. What day in August do we think it is?
I think it's the 13th.
August 13th, we're going to go with. It's a Sunday, sunny Sunday. And you're here with Gym Therapy, Inc. I am hosting this week's episode on generational trauma. I'm Justin, and with me...
I'm Trista.
As always. Glad to have you, Trista.
Thanks, Justin.
So this one is intergenerational trauma, which was something we'd been planning on talking about for a long time. And we just finally hooked up with a group in Bolivar called Favor, and we taught 2 classes this week on generational trauma, and just thought it'd be a perfect opportunity to do a little podcast on it.
Yeah.
So before we get to that, what's going on this week?
Still clicking your pen. Yeah, it makes a lot of noise.
Click the pen.
A lot of noise.
Why'd you give me the clicky? Oh, they're all clicky.
They're all clicky.
These are the finest pens you can find. ServPro 724-717-4098 for all your water disaster needs. Right now, all the sewers in Clymer are backed up. So
not that we want you to have disasters.
We absolutely don't. Yeah. I prefer you didn't have to call me, but if you do, go ahead. Yeah, all the sewers in Clymer are backed up. So I saw on Facebook. So I'm expecting a bunch of phone calls on Monday with people's basements. So
good. Well, I'm hoping it's not going my direction for work where I'm going after this. So
oh no!
Let's pray for that.
Love it. Glad to drop that little bombshell.
Thank you. Good. And there was a call out in the middle of the night. Now that I think about it. For the pump station closest to there. So good. Yeah. Good fun fact for work. Yay.
Ooh, yeah.
All right, let's talk about our weeks and what happened on the sunnier side of the beginning of the week. Mm-hmm. This week went really well.
Good.
Planned a little vacation. I wrapped up my 8-week kids class, which was it was fantastic. We had a really good time. We finished our last day with a kickball game in the fields at S&T Bank Arena, and we had a blast. It was really fun. So I think I'm going to do that for the adults too. We're going to look for a fundraiser to do and have a kickball tournament. I think it's going to be great. So we're looking for a good cause. We are bringing in 2 new classes for the fall. We're going to have an after-school kids program. It's going to be 6 weeks and starts on September 11th, 4:15 to 5 o'clock. So a 45-minute class, which for kids ages 9 to 12, that's typically good for their attention span. So you try something out and then you learn a little, So we did an hour classes and it was just a little bit too much as far as keeping them. Not that it was interesting workouts, but attention spans only last so long for kids. So 45 minutes is going to be plenty, especially coming right out of school, which would be a great opportunity for kids, like for their semester that they don't have gym class and they're not playing any fall sports. Good opportunity to keep them active. And we're also coming out with the same day, September 11th, a beginner's adult class.
Nice.
6:15 p.m. on Mondays and Wednesdays. And I'm super excited about that. This is for people who maybe have been sedentary for a long time, people that are looking to start their fitness journey, have never done it before, and a way to get into exercise. And also for the older generation, those that are trying to keep their bones healthy, keep their bone density good, and start to protect themselves if they get into any situations where they fall. We're going to teach them basic skills of how to get up, and it's so cool that you can have such a vast variety of people, and CrossFit can cover all of them. So I'm really excited about this class, and I'm working with a woman at 70 right now, and obviously I'm not teaching her how to climb a rope, but I'm teaching her what to do if she ever falls, how to get up off the floor.
I like that.
And stepping up onto uneven surfaces because, in a perfect world, we're never going to just be on a flat sidewalk all the time. There are instances where you're going to have to step on uneven surfaces and steps and all of those good things to keep her safe. So that's coming up, and I'm really excited for those opportunities and hoping to reach more of Indiana County and start to get them active.
Good. I like that. One of the biggest things we face whenever we tell people we're at gym program is, well, I'm not in good enough shape.
And this is going to be like a really slow paced class. So we're focusing on, when you come in, something small, like this is the setup of the gym. This is all the equipment. We're going to pick one thing we're going to work on. We're going to break it down into really, really true, like bite-size portions.
Good.
So we're not just throwing something at you and saying, oh, this is a lift, do it. It's really, really, really broke down for, like I said, people from beginners to, the older generation. So that's going on with the gym. Excited about that. Hoping to reach more people in Indiana County that haven't been active for a while. And we just got all the confirmation back that for our 9th anniversary in October, we're going to host a blood drive at the gym.
Nice.
Yeah, so
Even
I'm really,
better.
really excited about that.
Look at you. This last 6 months, you've been kind of killing it at the gym, haven't you?
It's been great.
You got all these little kids coming around saying, Miss Trista.
I love that. That's my favorite. And it's been going really well. And I'm 100% of the mindset that you give back to people, you serve your community, and good things come back to you. And if you give without expectation, and you just know, look how many free classes we've done, all of the things that we do out of the gym for free. But it ends up coming around where, people recognize our name, people know who we are, and they know that we care about the community. And that's all I've ever really wanted.
It happens with the opposite way, too, because of doing all this free stuff. We were invited to different classes, like the music and wellness training I did with Rusted Root. That was offered to us and paid for because of the work we do. The suicide assist training. And we're taking that class right now with Chase, the positive intelligence. Had we not done this stuff, he would have never approached us to do that, and we ended up getting a grant to do that too. My week was, speaking of grants, my week was great. Rotary gave us one. We got one, so excited.
Awesome.
Just waiting for it to land.
Clarify, a grant.
Yes, gave us a grant. Just waiting for that to land, and then we'll be able to do some more stuff within the community. We're gonna get some gym therapy, Rooster's Nest gear, and be able to either sell or give away so that when we have people come on. And then I want to be eventually be able to host an event at S&T or wherever inside the rink that apparently hasn't been an ice rink in 10 years. The one that we work out on.
Okay, one half of it is an ice rink. I don't know how to keep telling you this. One half is the ice rink. The other half is a turf, which they're actually putting in a basketball court right now.
Nice.
And if I don't want to say it wrong, but I think maybe an indoor tennis court and pickleball.
Great.
Yeah, indoor pickleball. So again, getting that other generation and a lot of the older generations getting into pickleball which is
right
amazing.
Now. Yes.
Moving their bodies. I'm so excited about that. Getting them into the doors at the arena. The arena is S&T Bank Arena, White Township Recreational Complex, kind of goes by both names.
Yes.
One of the best resources in Indiana County as far as keeping facilities nice for walking, plenty of stuff to do. They have pavilions, all kinds of great stuff.
Disc golf now.
Yeah, disc golf
baseball,
is
softball, any of that stuff. Basketball.
and outdoor pickleball now too.
Yeah. There's
a
playground up there too. We did some sled routing last year. It's a nice little place if you just want to be able to stay active. There's not a ton of excuses if you want to stay active and get up there. It's a good place to go.
And playground now is awesome.
Is it? I haven't seen it.
We had some fun on. I take the kids up there every once in a while. We have a blast. They have like a little zip line. It's really cool. So something to check out if you're looking for something to do with the kids. Check out S&T Arena towards the top portion by the soccer field. There's a little playground there for the kids.
All right. Well, you ready to get into it?
Yeah, this is a tough topic. So it's we're gonna have to kind of breach with a little compassion and a little care, and kind of one that hits home for both of us.
Yeah. Generational trauma. Generational trauma is a form of collective suffering that can be caused by extreme events or prolonged periods of difficulty. Generational trauma can result from conditions such as wars, slavery, natural disasters, and is typically passed down from one generation to the next. Things like things that happened within the family, abuse, death, suicide, those two things get passed down from generation to generation. And one of the things I think that is traumatic, which we're going to kind of explore during this, is poverty.
Mm-hmm.
I think that prolonged periods of difficulty, prolonged periods of poverty can be traumatic. And I think poverty is trauma. And that's something I'm pretty interested in exploring today.
And if you think about poverty too, one of the biggest things they talk about is generational poverty is the lack of education.
Lack of education, lack of funds, and lack of resources and abilities.
Yes, which the lack of education basically bars you from all of those things.
Yes.
All, you know.
Yeah. Now with the availability of internet being everywhere, we have the ability, I think, to recognize, and I don't want to say fix this problem, but we have the ability to point people in the right direction to educate themselves. One thing I heard that was really, really interesting this year is you said about, I heard it this week. Woman said, I didn't know at 18 there was any other option. At 18, I was just told that's when you go apply for your food stamps. And that's when you apply for your medical stuff.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's incredible, because that's not something we grew up, my dad retired early, so we didn't have a ton of money when I was growing up, but we never went without clothes. We never went without anything like that. Had you not been part of like the inner conversations of like family stuff, you would have never known like that we grew up poor. So to me, it was like, oh, whatever, this is just life, because we were provided everything we needed to be successful people. And I think
did your parents grow up that way? Did they grow up poor?
Well, I think it was different. I think that although they did, as in like lack of money, but it was a different time. It was like when you grew your own food and that sort of stuff. So it was just a way of life. It wasn't like poverty. Like when I think of poverty, I think of like the Sarah McLachlan commercial with the kids in other countries That was my mom's childhood. My mom grew up with one of 12 kids. Yeah.
She grew up, basically, they didn't get really Christmas gifts. And if they did, it was stuff that people donated to them because they didn't have money. And they would maybe get one pair of pants and stuff they had to share. Or they got other people's hand-me-downs. At school time, when it was time to get clothes, they didn't have a lot of options. And we discussed that a lot growing up. My mom was honest about that stuff with us. Like, hey, we're taking you school shopping. But, when I was growing up, I didn't have these luxuries. And it's stuff that constantly runs through your brain, that you're offered these things. Your parents are doing everything to offer you more than what they had.
Yes, and that's what survival mode, and we'll get into that later with the generational poverty. Is the reason that some people can't get out of it is because that they don't have time to look at the future. All they're worried about is today
and getting through today.
You have a mortgage to pay. If you're lucky enough to even be able to afford or capture a mortgage, we're not really built for worrying about what's going to happen in 2 weeks based on our paycheck to pay a mortgage in a month. We're more designed for like what's happening in the world today. So these are like just delayed stressors that we're not exactly built for. So this is the point of us doing this stuff, is to bring some of that to light and educate ourselves on it. Yeah. So additionally, there's a bunch of physiological changes brought on by specific experiences, trauma, such as heightened stress levels in the bodies and brain. And can also, I thought you were pointing at me, but you were just flipping your bed. Heightened stress levels in the body and the brain can also be inherited, such as generational trauma does not have to be conscious for current generations to feel its effects, and it can manifest in various ways over time. That was really interesting when we learned that last week. 'Cause remember, I thought whenever we were talking about things on our brain, I thought that was if our parents were like alcoholics and we were born with like fetal alcohol syndrome, but our parents being stressed can literally lead to us being born being stressed. I'm fighting a war that's not even mine, Mom.
Well, do you ever think about just where some of your fears come from? Like, terrified of snakes? And I remember being terrified of snakes, and I was like, I've never even seen one before. And where did that come from? Well, my mom is terrified of snakes. And
that's Adam and Eve stuff right there.
And it's funny. It's stuff that you inherit. Like, you're terrified of something because you're told that they're terrifying.
Yes.
And I still don't like snakes. They freak me out. But
they look creepy. They just slither. Yes. I don't trust things that don't have legs that can move.
And that was something that I thought was interesting. Every time I think about that, like inherited fears, that was one that my mom terrified of snakes. And if I see a snake, you will hear me 3 miles
audibly
away.
Scream.
Talking about signs of generational trauma, I wrote a couple down. And
yes, please.
If you don't mind me sharing them with you.
Go ahead. Because guess what? I'm up next. Signs and symptoms. So
well, this is what we're going to talk about. beat them to it. Anxiety, depression, chronic pain, substance abuse disorders, eating disorders, PTSD, insomnia, low self-esteem, fear of death, irritability, anger issues, and difficulty trusting others.
Ooh, okay. I'm going to go, I see those, and I'm going to raise you with emotional numbing and depersonalization. What do you think of that?
And hypervigilance. I see it on there, and
Yeah,
I have it wrote up
hypervigilance.
higher too. So looking at eating disorders, so how I think from that, eating disorders can be caused from generational trauma. If as a child you didn't have the proper nutrition, you didn't have the proper food, then whenever, it's very easy to, when you do have the means in the next, like your next, as an adult, either to overeat, dealing with the emotions,
Yes.
or severely undereat. I
Yes.
mean, there are both, like, where you're limiting yourself, where you're thinking, like, either I'm not deserving of all of this food that I have now, or severely undereat or overeating, or dealing with the emotions of what you went through. The trauma was with food as a child, of not having enough food. And going through that, I mean, that is a trauma. Like,
Yeah,
not knowing where your next meal is going to come from is a trauma.
And we learned last week, it happens the same thing with money. There are some people who's like, man, I only have $100 in the bank, so I'm just going to spend it. And even though you have 2 weeks to go, and there's other people that's like, man, I save all my money and sit on it like I'm Scrooge McDuck or something.
Yeah.
Because they are so afraid to spend it because they don't know where it's going to go. And the food thing, and I noticed that dogs are like this in a lot of ways whenever it comes to their food. My dog is one that, my dog eats food like I spend money. If it's there, she just spends it. She just eats it.
Yeah.
And other labs are like that, where they'll not eat their food until everybody's away and they know it's safe, and they can it's like they don't know where their next meal's coming from, so they're either gorging themselves to stay so full that they can last forever, or they're saving it to make it be able to spend the energy. Yeah.
Mine must be like me, because their food is out all the time. They eat when they're hungry, and they don't overindulge and overspend.
What's it like to be perfect, Trista?
Oh, trust me. It came from a very strange place in life. I remember at one point, I'm a person that likes to have money just in case something happens. And that's how I grew up, being raised. Don't spend all your money. You never know when something's going to happen. What if you need it? My grandparents raised my dad that way. And my grandparents had, on my dad's side, had money.
Yeah.
My pap was in the coal mines for years. He was a war veteran. Had money. They bought all their clothes from a thrift shop. Guess where I buy my clothes from?
Thrift shop.
All of my main clothes.
Popping them tags.
Yeah, they're from the thrift shop, because fast fashion, one, is bad for the environment. It makes me feel guilty. Okay. And two, if I can buy something that someone's wore like 5 times and dropped off at the thrift shop, why not?
Yeah, that's fair.
And the only thing I do spend a decent amount of money on is workout clothes, because I wear them 90% of the time and they get washed a lot, all that stuff. Besides that, like, everything I get comes from that. Why pay top price if you can get it a little bit cheaper because someone wore it once?
Yeah, most of my clothes now are either Serve Pro gear, because we get an allowance every year, or now it's going to be gym therapy gear, because and then I think I'm a blazer suit coat guy now with a V-neck, so that way I never have to worry about what I'm wearing underneath. I can just throw the coat on and I'm done.
I mean, in the V-necks, you sweat through them so many times you can throw them away and just buy a new pack for like $10.
Yes, it like the beginning of every season or so, like the one at the beginning of fall and beginning of winter, I'll just go buy a pack of like Fruit of the Loom t-shirts, like the 6 different multicolors, and like I end up wearing the blue, black, and gray, and that's pretty much it.
So another one I want to touch on too is generational trauma, substance abuse disorders.
Yes.
So, some people, you see, if their parents are alcoholics or drug addicts, they follow in the footsteps. And then the others that break that cycle are ones that, like, hey, I grew up with this. I don't want to grow up with it, and I don't want to make my kids grow up with it. Like, I don't want to live with it, and I don't want to pass it on to my kids.
Yeah, I don't. It's with the dog and spending. It is so funny how people just go in opposite directions, and it's just their way to fight. It's basically fight or flight.
Mm-hmm. Coping mechanisms too. I mean, you're coping with a lot of this stuff is deep-seated trauma, and if we don't get to the root of them, they do come out as anxiety, depression, pains, substance abuse disorders, eating disorders. there's always something deep seated behind it, and if we don't really go and do the work, therapy, whatever types of therapy we do, it's going to manifest.
Yes. And one of the biggest things we learned was we got a whiteboard up here now. You can't see it, but we gravitate towards the familiar.
Mm-hmm.
What's that mean to you?
That means that we live basically what is considered normal to us.
Yeah. So you can see it in your relationships, and not just your romantic, but your financial relationships, and your if you're used to having, you might thrive in a place where that is this chaotic because that's what you're used to at home. I know, like car sales, the days where there was 100 people running around, I loved them because you could just kind of bounce between people and go, and you didn't have to stay in any one place too long, and you can just keep moving. You can I feel like more in control when things are chaotic than whenever things aren't. Not you. No, exact opposite.
Don't like chaos.
Yeah.
No.
See, I thrive in it. I just think it's like things are finally moving a speed I'm used to.
When it's loud and chaotic, I'm in fight or flight, and I just want to leave. So like if I'm at family picnics and everyone's loud and yelling, and not that my household was always like that, but it was always a louder environment. Everyone's loud in my family. And that makes me just like want to run. So picnics outside, sweet. I can handle it. I can walk around, get out of the sound. But indoors, like Christmas time when everyone's super loud, football's playing, people are screaming at the TV. There are people talking in this room, this room, this room. It is sensory overload for me. And I can like feel the walls closing in. And I have to like go somewhere, zen myself for a few minutes and come back. And I can usually make it a couple hours before I'm like overwhelmed.
Ready to roll.
Yeah. If dogs are barking, people are yelling at the TV, it's just way too much for me.
Yeah. So I get at events like that, I get in trouble with Megan. I get in trouble for not spending enough time with her.
Yeah.
Because I'm just running around going everywhere, and she's like, "Why do you?" And I'm like, "I don't know. This is just it's what I like to do. I just like to I feel like I'm more productive in chaos." But you are right though. There's a lot of times where it gets so loud and crazy. It's like I got like 2 hours here, and I'm ready to.
And roll. I have to go and bring it back down.
Yeah.
One that I thought was interesting too is irritability, and this one is one that like, in like anger issues, having my maternal grandfather was just one of the grumpiest people I've ever met in my life, and like I think part of my hyper vigilance is you would walk into my grandparents' house and you would know if you're going to have a good visit or a bad visit by the tone of his voice and the look on his face, and you would know. And I see like some of his kids that are in that same realm, that same mindset.
Do you think that's a control thing?
No, I think that like when something bad would happen, or maybe you were low in money, or he didn't win the lottery ticket, that the world just happens to him and everything, the man keeps him down, and it would be like this thing. And instead of being like, what are the chances of winning on a lottery ticket? Like 1 in
a billion.
Yeah. And instead of like having that mindset, it is taking it out on everybody else. Life sucks and he never wins anything, and you'd walk in, and if something bad happened to him that day, everybody in the home paid for it. And you could feel it the second you walked in the door. And there are some, like some of his children that are in the same mindset, and it's hard, like because it's what they grew up with and what they knew, and maybe
so that's what they do now.
Yeah, and it may have been what he grew up with,
or they do the opposite.
And like that was a hard one for me because I love my grandma. My grandma was the sweetest person, and going over there and seeing him and him just being this nasty grump and like yelling at her, it was hard to want to go there, And my other grandparents on my dad's side were typically always happy. They lived life of service. They, did things for others and worked at the food bank. The St. Vincent de Paul, did all of those things. And it was a completely different experience between the grandparents. But just looking back at like what I remember as a kid, and then seeing some aunts and uncles having that same mindset, you just want to be like, just what can we do to get you past that mindset of like, that life sucks? Because it doesn't. We can always find something positive, maybe not even positive. Maybe that's being too like woo-woo about it. But something to learn from a situation,
Yes.
right? Okay, yes, lottery tickets. It sucks I didn't win them, but what are the chances that I would win it? Maybe 1 in a million.
Yeah.
So instead of taking this money and spending it on a lottery ticket, why don't I put it into my savings account? That $10 or $20 or $30.
I know, because it feels
day.
like you're buying a lottery, like $1 lottery ticket a day is like, well, it's, or two even. Let's say you buy two a day at $1 a piece. It's like, well, that doesn't do anything. But at the end of the month, $60, the end of the year, that's like,
yeah.
it's $250, $260. But if you're the type of person that buys $20 lottery tickets every day, how many people do you know that won the lottery? How many people do you know that have a savings account? I bet.
I mean,
I bet the numbers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just we talked about this when we had class last weekend about, buying lattes. I used to get like Starbucks coffee or
Red Bull.
Local coffee shops. And I love supporting local businesses, and I do it when I can. But doing that every single day, that's $6 a day for a month is a lot of money.
Oh my, yeah.
And when I did the math on that, I was like, oh, hell no. Like, I am just hemorrhaging out money. And that is $6 is a big portion of an hour worked.
Yeah, and if you're the type of person that smokes too, when you stop at a place like Sheetz, you'll buy what I think a pack of cigarettes like $10, $11 now. You'll buy a pack of cigarettes, and then while you're there, you might as well buy a drink. So there's another $2, and you might as well buy a snack. So that's another like $4. So now you're up to $16. And then you know what? I might need cash for the day, so I go to the ATM, swipe cash, and you take out $20. But then the ATM charges you $2. So it's like you're negative $18, and all for what?
Exactly.
And I understand smoking. Don't just quit smoking. It's 2023, and I don't even know what vaping is. Stop vaping too.
It's a hard habit to kick. Nicotine is one of the hardest.
See, I disagree.
I smoked as a like young teenager into my adulthood, and my grandma had COPD. My mom's mom had COPD, and I knew all of the reasons why I shouldn't smoke. And then when she died, I remember driving with the cigarettes in my car, and made a terrible choice of throwing them out the window. Don't do that. But I threw them out the window, and I was like, I'm not going to smoke these ever again, because my mom was like, this was an awful way to die. Like, COPD is a terrible way to die. Like, don't smoke. And then when I did the math on that too, I sat and did the math. I'm like, I'm always broke, but I somehow come up with $6 every 2 days to buy a pack of cigarettes. And now they're like, what, like 10,
11, something like that. I think nicotine withdrawal is literally nothing. If nicotine withdrawal was so bad, why don't you wake up in the middle of the night like throwing up then?
Oh, I was sweating. I was miserable. I was mean. I wore.
Tell me something different.
I wore a patch, and I was like gross. And I had like crazy dreams. I put the patch on. I had the craziest dreams I've ever had in my entire life.
Oh, that is.
I mean, it's a hard thing. I don't want to take that from people. It's hard. It's a hard habit to kick.
You're just told it's hard. It's not. Just quit.
It's a hard habit to kick, but you can do it.
Yeah, 100%.
That's different.
Like opiate, heroin withdrawal, stuff like that, where you wake up and you literally have flu-like symptoms. When you're quitting smoking, you're literally just irritable. Just stop being irritable. Just quit.
I think that you're simplifying it.
I'm simplifying it because it's that simple.
I don't. We're gonna disagree.
Agree to disagree. All right, how long we been? We think we're 20-some minutes in.
I don't know.
All right, do you want to take a?
Probably.
All right,
I'm good. I don't have to pee or anything. Okay.
All right, coming out of the break, we want to talk about dealing with generational trauma symptoms. Subsequent generations can pass down trauma and its outcomes. The same can be said for resiliency, which I think it's really funny. I have a bunch of things written down here, and if you literally just do the opposite of what half of them say, like we gravitate towards the familiar. So instead of gravitating towards negativity, you gravitate towards positivity, or you need constant validation. This one I thought this was really interesting. We have people that need they're negative, and then they sit back and they wait for something negative to happen, and then they say, "See, I told you. See, I told you so." And if you can literally just do the opposite of it. Like, positive things happens very consistently in every single part of our life, but we focus so much on the negatives that it just brings our baseline down consistently over and over and over again.
I just saw a post on social media. It's been kind of going around where people are like, notice the glimmers, because people talk about triggers all the time. Oh, this triggers me. Notice the glimmers, and they're like the signs of like hope that you feel and the happiness that you feel, even if it's just for a small segment of time. Take note of those and have gratitude for those. And I think having gratitude is a big thing for helping mindset.
Yes.
And just having gratitude for what you have. Like, yes, maybe I don't have the newest car, but I have a car that's getting me from point A to point B right now. It's taking care of my needs right now. I'm grateful to have what I have. And I think living in that mindset helps you in a healthy way, instead of being a victim to circumstance all the time. And when I think about that, when I think about some of the things in my own family, people are victim to circumstance, but they're actively not trying to change circumstances either. My mom didn't go back to school. My mom didn't graduate college until she was 40 years old.
That's
my
awesome.
mom went to nursing school, and she became an LPN. She was the first person in her family to go to college. I'm pretty positive. And the first
12 kids too, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible. And Mary, congratulations. Let's get married.
Yeah, Mom,
come on.
I'm proud of
Good
you.
job, Mary.
And I think that she's the only one that ever has. Yeah. And I don't know, maybe my second cousin has graduated college since then. Mm-hmm. I don't think that we have many people that went to college. So... interesting.
Now, my oldest sister graduated from Triangle Tech. She's not my oldest sister, my second, Jen. She has a degree in architectural computer-aided drafting and is a fantastic artist. But her daughter is the first person in our family to graduate from a 4-year university.
Isn't that insane?
Yeah, but look at it though. Jen was the first one to graduate from a trade school, so her daughter graduates from a four-year university. That's pretty incredible. And
that's the stuff that I think that we need to celebrate more often.
Yeah.
I mean, actually celebrate these people. That's a big deal.
It's a huge deal.
I know. When I'm looking back and I'm thinking now, my own family, I don't know any, besides my second cousin graduating, I think she's in college right now, nobody else, including myself, stuck with college. Yeah. And I look back of that on myself and I think that was a wound for me, thinking I'm never going to be able to do this. I'm not smart enough for this. I'm never going to be able to pass college. And now, when I'm feeling that mindset, I'm taking a lot of courses.
It's not a 4-year university, but man, just to become a level 1 CrossFit coach is incredible. That Chase is doing that now. He's working on it, right? To become a level 2 is even more incredible. And right now, do you want to tell us about your L3s a little bit?
So I did the level 2 coaching course last year, and I really enjoyed it. And it's more about teaching, cueing, correcting, and if you come to my gym, you know that I do that a lot. Yes. And identifying
in
things.
A good way. Yeah. I'm not
in the middle of a lift, saying, okay, hey, I need you to take a full extension, you need to do this, do that. And I've become a better lifter too since taking that course. And my next step is going to level 3, which is like a proctored exam that I have to go and take on my own. Okay. And it is a test that they give you amount of information that may or may not be on the test that you study for, and you have to search all these resources, and you have to have I think it's 600 and some hours of coaching experience. And when I figured out my hours for the past 3 years, I was 900 and something.
Oh yeah,
that's just for the past 3 years.
You have 4 hours a day of coaching experience, 4 days a week, right?
That's just for CrossFit classes. That CrossFit. Doesn't include the personals, and in that I also took my level 1 nutrition course for precision nutrition, and I also took a athlete centered and trauma focused training, which was really interesting. CrossFit offered that, and that was a good thing for me, and I think that kind of added to my tool belt. And also I did the Girls Guns Strong women's specialist course. And you learn a lot, and you learn a lot of different things. A lot of them, which was really cool, that brought full circle what we've been doing at Gym Therapy Inc. A lot of those things are covered in these trainings I'm taking about awesome. How to talk to people and how to work with someone who has anxiety and depression, who might not do well in a group setting. Approaching someone, and before touching them to correct their form, asking them, is it okay if I touch you? Those are things that are really important. So
I did. We got work photographs taken the other day, and I thought that was interesting. She's like, can I fix your collar? Asking before,
And those are things that a lot of people don't think about. But it took me a long time to get out of the mindset that I wasn't smart. And I think I took my water operator's exam. And yes, it's a good thing to have because there's going to be a shortage of them soon because everyone that does this is like 60 or 70. It's not something I'm passionate about, but I proved to myself that I was smart enough to do that.
That's
and it
almost
was
better,
not easy.
right?
It was
something
not
you're not
easy.
passionate about, and to be able to pass a test of something you're
Yeah.
not passionate about, I think that's even more incredible. Because a lot of times we're not exactly passionate about what we do daily for a lot of people, but to wake up and be able to accomplish those things even when you're not, that's why it's so important to find things that you are. One of the things I'm really, really I'm proud of, when I was researching generational trauma and generational poverty, there's not a whole lot of things that link those two things together. There's a lot of things that dance around them. And you go onto a TED Talk and you want to look at anxiety, depression, there's videos with 10, 12, 13 million views. You go onto generational trauma and whatnot, there's like 400,000, 300,000, 25,000 views. It makes me, I was a little bit depressed at first. I was like, oh, that sucks. People weren't interested in this. But what I think is we're just ahead of it. I really do think we're ahead of it. I think that these are problems that aren't exactly recognized because families need to be able to work together and fix some of these problems. I forget where I was going with that.
I just don't think that a lot of people are linking what they're going through as part of maybe what their parents went through or the generation before their parents went through.
Because it's so familiar that they're just like, this is just the way it is.
Correct.
And I think this is something that has been there forever, obviously, but it's something now that if you can look at it and you can kind of break out of some of those, because like my family does a great job. My parents were able to break out of generational poverty by being good people and educating us and showing us that we even though we didn't have a lot of financial backing, we still had all the things we needed to grow up to be good people.
And having a support system,
Yes.
My mom and dad got married really young. My mom was only 16 and they had my brother and they started out like kind of with this card stacked against them.
Yeah.
And my mom's parents didn't have money to really help them,
Yeah.
but my dad's parents did, but they didn't just give them money.
Yeah.
If they needed something, like my dad had to work that off, or if he was given money, he had to pay it back.
Yeah.
That he was not just handed things, because that's not how my pap operated. If you wanted something, I can loan you the money until you get it, but then you're going to pay it back. So that's kind of, they had a support system to help them break that cycle, but not everybody has that.
Absolutely.
And they don't have people that are in maybe a good financial standing to help them, or even if it's not about money, like helping them educate them or letting people know that they're worth something. They're worth the education. They're worth getting in maybe a little bit of debt to go to school because you are smart enough, you are good enough, and you do have the talent to carry you through. And I think when you are born into a family or a situation where no one's ever went to college, all right, no one in my family's ever done it, I can't do it. Like, we're just not smart people, or we're just not good test taker, or whatever the story is we're telling ourselves. We just sometimes need people to believe in us and say, like, you can do this. And sadly, like, sometimes people in our own families are like, no one in our families ever went to college.
Yeah,
like, you just can't do it.
You're a mingle. You can't do that. Like,
And,
that's just the Smith luck. I say Smith because Smith's common name, not.
But sometimes it's you have to reach out of your family dynamic and find those people that offer the support. Maybe it's a teacher, maybe it's a coach, maybe it's a a friend's parent, something that can give you that if you have this like glimmer that, hey, I want to go to college, and everyone's telling you that it's, or tech school, whatever, is telling you that it's not achievable, find someone that helps you believe that it is.
Yeah. Can I tell you about Jason Mingle for a minute? But Jason's the middle brother. There's myself and Joe. Jason and Joe about, I told you before, when I was a kid, my dad got polio, so he retired early. And Jason and Joe both were like, they were just like, fuck it. They both quit school right within a year of each other, and in about 11th grade, and they just went out and got jobs. Jason milled around, was never not, he was always a hard worker. Joe's the exact same way. Joe's like the superintendent of InfoSource or something like that. Jason owns his own welding business, and his wife owns her own business, and they spend half their year at this campground up north, which I think they're purchasing too. They were already bought, I don't know. But Jason one day came to me and he bought a brand new truck, brand new F-150. And he was a well tender and he was doing all right. But he came to me like 6 months later and he's like, I'm quitting well tender. I'm starting my own welding business. And he's like, I need to buy a new truck. And I was like, all right. I was like, well, first off, you're not. I was like, you're not driving two brand new trucks. And he so he traded this one truck in, went out, bought a brand new welder, built a bed for his truck, and I was like, when do you start your job? And he's like, I don't have one yet. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I just financed a truck for him. First off, I didn't even know I didn't even know he had a job or didn't have a job yet. He put all this stuff into motion. He's like, if I wouldn't have done that, he said, I would have never been able to be successful. But he quit his old job, bought a brand new welder, built himself a bed, and bought a brand new truck before he even took his first welding test. He wasn't even qualified. Went and took his welding test, and it's been 12 years later, and they're doing as well as anybody I know. They live in two different places half the year. They're happy. That's the biggest thing. They had a couple new trucks and whatnot. And I even said to Jason, I was like, I'm surprised you can walk with the size of your balls, because holy, like
that is flexing a self-trust muscle that is impressive.
I didn't know he had. I didn't know he had.
Yeah.
And it's incredible. But he's one of the most talented welders I've ever met. My dad was a welder. My dad was uberly talented. People tell me that all the time. But that's a trade school type situation. And Jason didn't even finish high school. He was like, I just don't need it. I'm going on. And although I do not recommend that, Jason did get his GED eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he did, and I couldn't be more proud of the guy. That's all. No one tell him I said that though.
Yeah, and that's finding trust in himself and belief in himself, and I'm sure his partner.
Well, and
was
Stephanie having
a
good support system, that's kind of how you get yourself out of some generational poverty and generational things, is surrounding yourself with people. You're the average of the 5 people you hang out with, and his wife is a pretty exceptional person whenever it comes to that. She has a lot of qualities that Jason didn't. So they fit each other very well,
That's good.
Yeah. So I think there's like a couple fixes whenever you're dealing with generational trauma. My two favorite are identify and acknowledge. That's my first one. Identify, acknowledge is the same thing. But the number two is communal involvement. I think that's the benefit of a place like us, a gym like us, a gym like yours, and then the gym therapy like ours. You do need to be around people that are like-minded, and if you want to be around like-minded people that are successful, you'll be like-minded and successful. I do
absolutely. And I think too, another one is like identify, acknowledging, and talking about the traumas that you went through, or if you have a safe place to do that, obviously.
Yeah.
If therapy, or even if it's talking about with your family. My mom and I have discussed a lot of things that like she went through growing up, things that I went through growing up, and assuring her like, hey, you did not break me. Like these are childhood traumas can come from anything small, just something someone said to you that you hold on to and remember, even though it was meant to maybe be a joke, but it's something you take at heart. Everybody is different.
When you grow up in a big family, you bust each other's balls all the time too. So
yes, and some people take it to heart. Like I was a really emotional kid. I'm still a pretty emotional person, and I take things to heart. I do, but in the same light, I think if we don't talk about them and you keep them boiled up, it's when the signs come out. Anxiety, depression, and all of those other things that they're coping mechanisms. They're coping for the things that we've went through in our life, and this always comes around full circle to therapy. Sure.
Do the work to identify the patterns that exist in your family. You kind of have to recognize the attitudes that get you stuck. You have to have compassion towards each other too. And I had a class Thursday out in Bolivar, and there was these 5 boys. They were between 15 and 17. And I was handing out a paper. I was like, I need you guys to write on this, like what you want to do. And I said, just listen, 5 minutes, don't bust each other's balls. Just let each other do this.
Yeah.
And one of the boys wrote I had him write one goal, and his goal was to be in better shape, but his second goal was just to be a better overall person. I thought it was such a nice little
Yeah.
little thing, especially for a kid that's like 16 years old, to just show up to a class like this without any prompting and just want to be a better person. I thought that was pretty great.
And I mean, I think a lot of these courses too, we talk about compassion. We're telling things that are pretty vulnerable.
Empathy.
You know what we go through, and yeah, having empathy for others, being a good person, and being of service to others is important. And in the community that you're involving yourself in, if you are, most of the time, if you hang out with people that want to sit in the bar all the time, you're going to sit in the bar all the time too.
Yeah.
But if you start hanging out with people that are active and they want to do things and you want to be outdoors more and you want to change your lifestyle, you have to start mingling into the groups that do the things that you want to do.
Absolutely. And it, and some of us, not us, me personally, but if you want to, you got to stay away from emotionally unavailable women, my friend out there. I'm looking at you. I've been sitting on that for a while. I was gonna. You knew who I'm talking about. What do you got? Anything for kind of wrap up, or what do you got?
No, that's all I got.
That's all you got?
Yep.
Yeah, I do think that poverty is traumatic, and I do think poverty can be lumped in with generational trauma, because if you're constantly in a state of need, or you're constantly in a state of worry, or constantly, that's no different than being in a it's slightly different than being in like an abusive relationship, I believe. If you're in an abusive relationship with money and you're situationally locked down to a certain place, I think there's a lot of parallels there. That's all.
Yeah, and hypervigilance. I mean, when you're constantly in a world of hypervigilance where you're worrying about what's happening around you, it's hard to focus on going forward and making the steps to get out of a situation.
100%. You're just worried about surviving till today or surviving till tomorrow. So if you did grow up slightly without, or you did grow up with a lot of generational trauma, go hug your parents, go give your family members a high five or something and thank them for the good stuff they did give you, and have conversations with them about, hey, how do we move forward with this? And if you're feeling guilty or anything like that right now, just don't take offense to this stuff, because a lot of this stuff wasn't your fault, because it came down from generations previous to you. So,
and I mean, resources out there. If you can't afford a therapist, there are resources for therapy.
Yes.
Go out there, talk to a therapist. You can devise a plan to break out of these cycles too with your therapist. A good therapist will do wonders for you.
Yeah, a good therapist worth their weight in gold. But listen, exercise, eat right, communicate with good people. Mm-hmm. You know, that's 3 ways you can fix this. Identify, exercise. Wait, what do we do? Educate, empathize, exercise. That's our motto. All right.
That's it. What are we doing next week?
So next week we're going to have Ryan Wagner on, and we're going to talk about personal inventory. We're going to start classes, I think, the following week after that. So I think what our goal is moving forward, we're trying to work with favor. All of us have jobs. All of us have full-time jobs, and we're trying to get some version of a schedule, so that way we can put things down. I think what we're going to do is every other week in Bolivar on Thursday, I'll be there with a mixed bag of gym therapists, gym therapy members. What do we call ourselves? Nesters? I don't know what we call ourselves.
That's a good one.
But I'll be there, and then also we're going to do a class every other Sunday. So we're going to record one Sunday, the following Sunday we're going to have a class. And next week we'll record, so the following Sunday after that we'll have a class. You may not be there, but I'll be able to do something outdoors.
You might be outdoors, yeah.
Yeah, but okay. I'm thinking something like disc golf, something like that, something where we go on the 5K course and throw some stuff around, and then do something out in the woods, pending weather.
All right.
All right.
All right. We'll see you next week.
Trista, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
It was
Love
informational.
You guys. Yes, that's right.
Love you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Go outside.